This game has been kicking my... The last video I said that I would be making a Souls-like devlog, and I am. However, this has been very difficult, and I've been struggling a lot with making this game. By the end of this video, I want you to understand how I pulled myself out of a dead project, basically, and now I'm kind of back on track, and I kind of know what I'm doing. So hopefully, my failures can be your lesson. So it's funny because previously I was doing a game a week project, and that versus making a game without time constraints, I've realized now how much I benefited from the time constraints that I had before. The restraints of working on the game a week project actually kept me a lot more focused than just working without any sort of schedule or a vague suggestion of a schedule, which is kind of what we all do, calling everybody out. Now I'm free to work at my own pace and work on my own schedule, and it just feels like things are going to shit. When I was making my video about game genres, I realized that 2D Souls-like kind of was right in the middle area, and it kind of fit what I wanted for my next project, so I selected that one, thinking, you know, this is gonna be easy. It's not the case at all, bro. It's not the case at all, for a lot of reasons. So I wanted to make a 2D Souls-like game that was equally platformer as much as it was Souls-like. And I wanted the action to be, you know, similar to Dark Souls, but I wanted it to be a platformer in the vein of a Donkey Kong Country or a Mario. In an effort to make games smaller, I figured I would make a small game, but I would try to find a way to make it replayable. So I would add roguelike mechanics. But not just any roguelike mechanics, like FTL. To fully give you the picture, I wanted a 2D platformer game with Souls-like combat in a world map similar to FTL. Now, FTL is Faster Than Light. This is a roguelike that came out several years ago, in which you are on a map and there are random points generated, and each random point is a random enemy encounter or, you know, mission or shop or something like that along those lines. Kind of wanted to do the same thing with Dark Souls in terms of a 2D platformer where you go through, you know, kind of randomly generated levels or randomly ordered levels, and you can build your character as you travel along on your journey. I thought that sounded great. The idea itself did not seem ridiculous, maybe a little bit out of my scope of abilities at the moment, but not something I couldn't see myself learning, as I had dabbled slightly in procedural generation at this point. However, dabbling is not the same thing as doing. The minute that I actually started developing, it seemed like I was breaking all of my own rules very quickly. As soon as I started working on this game, immediately I started focusing on deep design concepts like, you know, what does this mean, or what is this mechanic, or how do they play together, and all of these abstract things that we all love so much as idea guides. But when we get into the realm of actually making games, we kind of have to throw our idea guy stuff away and focus on what we can actually do and what you're actually doing on the screen. You know, we could say, oh, this game is incredible in the shooting mechanics and how it juxtaposes the balance of life and decisions and choices. But as a game designer, you have to say jump and shoot. It's jump and shoot. It's jump. How do I make jump and shoot fun? This is what we go through. So I started building it a little too lofty, now that I realize, a little too abstract in my design decisions. My workflow is I immediately start with a minimum viable product. Just start building placeholder mechanics just so I can like put the game on the screen as fast as possible. So that means making boxes as attacks, whatever you gotta do, get the game on the screen. Added the Dark Souls roll in there, and it was working out. It was feeling kind of good. Added some placeholder enemies and attacks just so I can understand the flow of enemies and how many I would want, or when they would appear, or, you know, just kind of how that would play out and imagine in my head. And then I started working on the world map, the FTL style map, which was the biggest roadblock that I completely did not anticipate. This is where I started to notice serious issues when I realized I barely have the skills to develop the minimum viable product. So when it comes to polishing this up and making it good, making something versus making something good are two different skill sets. But I was able to implement the map in a basic form as I went further into my version of what I wanted a Souls-like to be. I started to develop a list of what I called core mechanics and signature mechanics. So a core mechanic to me in Dark Souls would be something along the lines of rolling. Rolling is extremely important. I don't think there is a Souls-like without rolling, because the entire game is kind of built on really difficult enemies. So part of avoiding those enemies is not blocking, it's dodging. Even so, Bloodborne removed block. So I would say blocking is a signature mechanic, because normally there is a shield involved, or you can block with your weapon, but you normally take damage if you block with your weapon, or lose poise when you block with your shield. Rolling, however, good. You can roll around, roll as much as you want. Just roll and roll. Roll. You can just roll. Another example would be backstabbing and parrying. I would say that backstabbing is a signature mechanic. Parrying is very close to a core mechanic, because again, Dark Souls is about difficult enemies and difficult combat, and in world design it's very, fuck you. The world design in these games are very much, unforgiving, if you will. But the combat in itself, a lot of times, rewards you for dodging and anticipation. So parrying is very important to me. So, develop my list of core mechanics versus signature mechanics. Had all these amazing ideas. I went through and I was studying games, I was watching videos. One thing I like to do a lot is I read reviews, because reviews literally tell you what worked and what didn't. This was the most fun part, is kind of just exploring and reading and trying to understand what I wanted to put into my game. The thing is about that is that as I'm developing these lists of mechanics or ideas, I'm not really certain if I can actually make these mechanics or ideas, or if I can even make them good at all. And I'm really just developing a wish list of what I wanted my game to be, as I realize now. As I started implementing some of these ideas into my game, I realized that it wasn't exactly clear what I was making, right? This game and some documents that I wrote sound like a huge story-based game with a deep meaning, and in some documents it sounds like a fun 5-minute playthrough of this love letter to Dark Souls, and it's like, that's not what I wanted in either document. It wasn't clear what my vision was from reading my own work. But when writing it, you could write all day. You write all day and just make up whatever you want. As I was doing this, I realized I had to lower the scope. So I had this list of features and ideas that I wanted, and as I went to try to make them, it just went down and down and down and down and down and down until it became almost demoralizing to work on the project, because all the stuff I was excited about, I cut. Like, my goal wasn't to just make it. My goal was to try to make it good. And maybe that's the thesis of this project that went wrong. I started working on these features that felt like I was moving the needle, but really, I still didn't know what I was making. So I started working on another little side project here or there, and more on that later, which is what happens a lot of the time, is that we start working on another project when our main project isn't going exactly how we want. I pulled myself back and I said to myself, what is the problem that you are having? Why don't you want to work on this game? Why aren't you excited for this game?
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
The main reason is that I didn't know what I was making, and I wasn't excited about what the game was at the moment. That's when I decided to venture off into the world of GDC and Reddit forums. I stumbled upon this GDC talk about one-page designs. It was written by Stone Lebrande, Stone.
But why can't you find the design that we need to talk about, but the one that we're already finished with you have hanging up on your wall? He's like, oh, it looks cool. And I'm like, what? You hung it on your wall because it looked cool. So that was kind of the moment for me where I'm like, I wonder if I can make all my designs look cool. Because if I can, people will hang them up on the wall and they won't lose them. And that actually started me on this path of like trying to make these one-page designs.
Yeah, so this one-page design documents GDC talk was extremely helpful. It kind of showed me that a lot of people struggled with this same exact dilemma that I'm struggling with on a larger scale. Entire teams struggle with this, where there's this big design Bible and nobody reads it and people just kind of make what they want with it's basically a legal document for your game, where it itemizes everything that's in your game and into like sections and clauses and everything, and you just go through and you fill it out one by one, and at the end you have a game that you can just kind of make from there. But then the second option of design wikis is also equally bad, or slightly less bad, because it is a big convoluted website basically for your game, where there's tons of articles that link each other and people add articles and edit articles, and there's no updates on the changes made, and it just becomes this like scavenger hunt of what is this actual game. Kind of watching this GDC talk, he provided the solution of one-page design documents. One-page designs are basically taking a feature or an idea or a section of your game and condensing it down to one page. This could be, for example, your enemies. Maybe you have a ton of different enemy types. How can you condense and explain what type of enemies your game will have, what type of features they will have, what they will look like, how they will play? I needed something like this. I needed to find a way to make my game translate in my own mind to what it is. My biggest issue with the one-page design document was, originally, if you look up articles online or if you look up YouTube videos, my favorite video on the topic has been Tim Ruswick's video where he mentions creating a single page for his design document, in which he makes a design Bible essentially on a single page, which is very helpful because it gives you an overview of your game on one page. And then from there you can kind of do whatever you want. But that's also unhelpful in the sense that it doesn't drill down enough into what the game is. So you still end up trying to figure out what it is, even though you wrote what it is. It was like closer, but not quite where I needed it to be. Like, my entire goal in this was to not only pull my project back from the dead and make it enjoyable to work on again, it was kind of also to find, hey, does someone have an actual answer to this? Have we never tried to figure out an answer to this? Like, what's the best way to do this as an industry? I think the person that pulled all of this together for me was Masahiro Sakurai's YouTube channel. He did a video about game proposals.
パワーポイント書類で作られていて、ほぼ全てのページはこのような感じです。200ページを超えていますね。ただ、読むと漫画の一コマのようにパッパとまくれるし、プレゼンをする際にもさほどの時間はかかりません。また、実践的にゲームの仕様に織り込むため、少し細かいチームだけ知っていればいいという部分も含めて。
And this really, tied it all up nicely in a bow for me. It's a single page, a snapshot. He basically described it as a storyboard that described what that topic was in a nutshell. And there was 200 of these pages in total. Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot. But is it really, if everything is easily digestible? Is it really incredibly difficult to understand if every single page is just a single topic? Whether that may be the sounds, whether that may be the menus. And to me, that seemed like the best answer between a wiki and a design Bible, or, a one-page design document. Previously, I was using two different things to work on my games. I had my designs in terms of what I wanted my game to be, and then I had kind of my change log or my progress notes, or I still planned on doing that, because to me it was very helpful to see what I recently worked on, what I struggled with working on, and I can kind of talk to myself in a way. I decided to use a program called Nuclino. My favorite tool so far using this has been Milanote, but Milanote is a paid service, and in that I can kind of make my own little wiki entries that connect these to each other, and I felt like this would be the best way to kind of plan out what I wanted my game to be if I only used one page. The biggest problem with this solution is that it takes some design skills, so you will actually have to make art. You will actually have to sit down and design diagrams and charts and kind of figure out what you want things to be. But there is a good and bad to that, because the good in that is that you're forced to kind of decide what things are. The bad is that it's kind of hard to, add to it unless you go change the design. So it may require you to change the design a lot, but even that in itself could be a good thing, because that would mean you're not very sure about this topic if you keep changing it. So where did I leave off? This game, as of now, the minimum viable product is somewhat complete. I haven't added weapons or any sort of combat, which is important for Souls-like, granted, but I really wanted to focus on the platforming and the world map. The combat, I feel like I can add, anytime, and just tune that and tweak that as much as I want. So yeah, where I left off, pretty much this game is going to be much more linear in terms of the world map design. It's going to be more Mario 3 map than FTL. How I would describe the game at the end of my brainstorming session, the game is kind of an arcade Souls game. That's the best way I can explain it. It is an arcade Souls. Doing this has definitely helped me simplify my game and kind of nail down what it actually is. So I did say I would come back to that project that I jumped off to a little bit when I was struggling, and I kind of made a decision here. I realized that making devlogs for a long-term game, a lot of people do on YouTube, and I don't necessarily want to compete in that realm. I want to provide a story with every devlog that I'm doing that you guys can either enjoy for what it is, or maybe you can take back to your own projects in some way. And I kind of just want to talk about the process of making cool stuff, making my games, and kind of talking about games. I think that's the original idea for Game Courier, is just talking about games and bringing you guys cool ideas for games. So I will be going back in the future and remaking my first 6 games at a higher quality. Instead of 1 week, I'll be giving myself 1 month for the most part on my first 6 games that I was making. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I struggled with this one. This game had me banging my head against the wall. I didn't know how I could even add value to you guys with my struggles, and I feel like pulling myself out of the rut was enough to kind of make a video about. So here we go. Hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for watching. It's been GC Rex with Game Courier. Appreciate it. Peace.